Welcome to Team SNG deck profile, guys. Today we're going to be profiling the Ancient Warriors deck profile. This is an updated profile of the deck I took to the regionals in Reading. You can check out that profile in the description down below. Also, while you're there, take a look at the Facebook page, that's down there as well. And while you're here, make sure you leave us a like, comment, and subscribe. Now, Ancient Warriors has kind of gone through a massive transformation with the release of Eternity Code. Eternity Code has sort of added a bunch of ability for the deck to play on your opponent's turn, meaning that it can go first and it can go second. Now, it could go first previously, but the problem with it going first previously is that it had limitations and you were kind of reliant on seeing certain cards to be able to do it, whereas now it can go first a little more readily because you can search out a few more of your cards that help you and let you play on your opponent's turn, and you can trigger your effects on your opponent's turn, meaning that you can then trigger off a lot of your Ancient Warriors secondary effects that are present. So, with that, let's go into the deck and we'll talk about it. Let's begin with the monsters like we usually do. First card in the monster lineup is our Ancient Warriors Masterful Sun Ma-O. You can send a continuous spell or trap from your spell and trap card zone to the grave to activate his effect, or you can discard a card to activate his effect, letting you search out an Ancient Warrior monster from the deck. His secondary effect is if another Ancient Warrior monster activates its effect while he's on the field, then he can let you target a card on your opponent's side of the field and bounce that back to the hand. So he's really good for us because of the fact that his ability to search and his ability to help us break our opponent's board. Second monster we run is 3 copies of Graceful Shugong. This is kind of standard for the Ancient Warrior lineup. Graceful Shugong, he lets us search out spells and traps. We can send a card from our spell and trap card zone to the grave, letting us search for a spell and trap. He also has an effect where if an Ancient Warrior uses their effect while he's on the field, he can target a monster on your opponent's side of the field and negate that monster's effect. That does it for the water monsters. The next monster we run is also probably one of the more important Ancient Warriors, and that is Ancient Warriors Virtuous Liu Shuang. This used to be the only way that you could actually use effects on your opponent's turn. Whenever a battle is involved with one of your Ancient Warriors, if you have this card on the field, you get to draw a card. That used to then trigger the other Ancient Warrior's secondary effects on your opponent's turn, but it did require your opponent to battle you. So it kind of depended on your opponent doing something for you to be able to trigger their effects. We do have a way around that in the next monster coming, but that used to be our way of playing on our opponent's turn. He also has a secondary effect, which is if your opponent controls more monsters than you while this card is on the field, you can send a card from your hand or from the field to the graveyard to special summon an Ancient Warrior from the deck. The next card, as I alluded to, it does let us play on our opponent's turn, and that is the Ingenious Suje Kong. Now, the Ingenious Suje Kong is really interesting. He has a quick effect, which none of the other Ancient Warriors have, which is on your opponent's turn, or whenever, if your opponent activates a spell card, spell or trap, you can send a face-up Ancient Warrior continuous spell or trap that you control to the grave, and that will negate the activation of the spell or trap that your opponent's tried to activate. But if he's on the field and partnered up with the Virtuous Liu Shuang, what Ingenious Suje Kong will let us do is he will let us negate a monster effect. And so if you have Liu Shuang and Suje Kong on the field at the same time, then what you get is you effectively get a monster negate and a spell and trap negate at different points on your opponent's turn, which gives you better opportunity to activate your secondary effects of monsters like Sun Ma-O or Shugong on your opponent's turn. So it does give you the ability to sort of play on your opponent's turn, and that's why this is such a valuable card. The reason we run 2 is he has a secondary effect, which is if he is added to the hand by the effect of an Ancient Warrior card, he gets to special summon himself. We could run 1 because he is searchable, but the problem is if you draw that 1 copy in your opening hand, then you're screwed. You can't actually search him out. So that's why we run 2 copies of this. Next we run one of the best cards going second, and that is Loyal Guanyang. So Loyal Guanyang was probably my favorite card from the Ignition Assault set. If your opponent has monsters and you don't, you can special summon this card from hand. Also, if your opponent controls more monsters than you can target a monster on your opponent's side of the field, and you can destroy it. So, Loyal Guan Yu is a good sort of start card. The problem is that because I'm playing a deck that sort of hedges your bets as to whether you're going first or second, I don't want to run a third copy of this, because if I'm going first, it's kind of a dead card, because I can't exactly special summon it because my opponent doesn't have anything on their field. So that's why I'm only running 2 copies of this. And it's also because I'm running 3 copies of the new sort of card that can combo off on either player's turn. Next we have 2 copies of Ancient Warriors Valley of Shangde. What this card does is if you control 2 different attribute Ancient Warriors, you can special summon this card from your hand. If your opponent controls more monsters than you can activate this card's effect, and then you can have this card attack twice during the battle phase, allowing you to effectively push for game. He also gains 300 attack for each monster that your opponent controls, so he can get really quite big if your opponent's popped off on their first turn. Now onto the some of the new monsters we run. We now run the Fire Ancient Warriors. We only actually run a couple, because there are several that came out in Eternity Code, but really only a couple are any good. The first is this, and that is the Fearsome Zhang Yuan. If your Ancient Warrior monster battles with an opponent's monster, you could special summon this card from your hand at the start of the damage step and decrease your opponent's monster's attack by 1,000 points. Also, if your card your opponent controls is destroyed while this is on the field, you can target another card and destroy it. So you get to sort of pop off multiple cards with this card being on the field. The other thing is, while this card's on the field, your other Ancient Warrior monsters can't be destroyed by battle. So this sort of protects your other Ancient Warriors from destruction. You're going second, using this on your own battle phase when you declare an attack. Special summoning this gives you a big body. You've also lowered the attack of something on your opponent's side of the field, so you can probably run over it with something smaller. And that puts you in a better situation to start breaking their board that way. Off of this destruction, you can benefit, of course, with the Ambitious Chao Dai. Now, I only run 1 copy of this. It can be a bit clunky, I found, in testing. So, I only run 1 copy. It is highly searchable in the deck, so if you found yourself in a situation where you're going to be able to destroy stuff on your opponent's side of the field, then you can search for this. If a card on your opponent's side of the field is destroyed, you can send a card from your hand to the grave, or from the field to the grave, to special summon this monster. While you control another Ancient Warrior, your opponent cannot target this card, or destroy this card with card effects, meaning they're going to have to destroy it by battle, which again is where your Fearsome Zhang Yuan comes into play. Also, he has a bit of a Goyle Guardian effect, where when he destroys a monster by battle, he can special summon that monster from your opponent's graveyard to your side of the field, which you could then use as link material or as tribute fodder or whatever it is you need to sort of help build up your board. Alright, and that does it for all the Ancient Warrior monsters. Now, because I'm hedging my bet, and typically you want to go second with this deck, and in a lot of cases you're going to probably be allowed to go second in the first round, I am main decking 3 Gamma Seals. This could obviously come back and bite you in the butt, because if you're going up against something like Cyber Dragon, they're not going to want to go first, they're going to want to go second, meaning that you're potentially going to have to go first. But some of the other Ancient, as I say, the Ancient Warriors that we've added, some of them have let us play on our opponent's turn, meaning that we can at least go first. This is more a hedging of the bets kind of card in this main deck. But in the side, which I will go into a little bit, there are some cards that you would easily swap this out for if you ever expect to be going first. Alright, that does it for the monsters. Let's get on. Let's get on to the spells. First spell is the most important spell, and that is Ancient Warriors Saga 3 Visits. This is your Rhoda. You activate this. If an Ancient Warrior monster is normal or special summoned, while this is active on the field, you get to search out an Ancient Warrior monster. If this is sent from the field to the grave, by, say, an Ancient Warrior's effect, you get to special summon an Ancient Warrior from your hand. So this is why this is a really good card for this deck. It acts as a Rhoda, but it also acts as a extender by letting us put another body on the board. The next Ancient Warriors Saga that we run is Ancient Warriors Saga Borrowing of Arrows. This is a really interesting card. Basically, what you can do is when you activate it, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls and an Ancient Warrior that you control. And what you do is you have that opponent's monster's attack, and your monster gains it. So it basically turns any Ancient Warrior into Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon. The next thing it does, if it leaves the field while you control 2 Ancient Warriors with different attributes, you get to activate a Speller Trap, Ancient Warrior Speller Trap, directly from the deck. And so we run 3 copies of this so that we can potentially search out our Ancient Warriors Saga 3 visits. Or so that we can search out some of the or one of our other 2 Ancient Warrior Spell and Traps, which can be extremely useful. The next Ancient Warrior spell that we run is Ancient Warriors Saga Suddenly Alliance. This is really cool. If you control Ancient Warriors with multiple attributes, what you can do is you can declare an attribute and your opponent cannot activate monster effects that share the attribute that you've declared. So you say against Cyber Dragon, you declare something like Light and their effects are all turned off. Or something against like Mech Knight, you declare Light and all their effects would be turned off. So it can be things like that where it's like you turn off entire archetypes with just by declaring their mono attribute. The next thing that this does though, if you activate an Ancient Warriors effect while this is live on the field, you can make all your Ancient Warriors gain 300 attack for all other Ancient Warriors on the field. So if you have 5, they all gain 1500. If you have 3, they all gain 900. And so they become extremely big bodies. So going first, this might be something that you want to activate. You can also trigger this power boost when your opponent special summons a monster. So going first, this is definitely be something that you might want to activate so that your opponent has to either get rid of this really quickly, and they have to do it before they special summon, or they have to accept that they're not going to be able to likely get over your Ancient Warriors by attack. And that does it for the Ancient Warrior spells. Next we run some Fire Formations. We run 3 copies of Fire Formation Tenki. This is just basically a Rota for the whole deck because everything is Beast Warrior. We run 3 Fire Formation Tenzus because we really need to see 2 Ancient Warriors of different attributes because a lot of things do kind of rely on having multiple attributes on the field. So Tenzu just gives us the ability to extend naturally. Also, both Tenki and Tenzu, because they stay on the field, can be sent from the field to the grave for cost of a lot of the Ancient Warrior monster effects. So that does it for the Fire Formations. Next we have some draw power. We run 2 copies of Pot of Desires. We were running a Pot of Extravagance, and when Pot of Extravagance's price goes down, I will likely change these out for Pot of Extravagance because the extra deck isn't all that important. However, I prefer Pot of Desires over Pot of Extravagance. The other thing is, right now, because of price mostly, the other thing is, though, that Pot of Extravagance locks you out of drawing, meaning that Liu Xuan's battle effect is basically turned off, which is unfortunate. Now, we run some going second-ish cards, just as I say, this is sort of a hedging your bets build. The first is Raigeki, just generic pop everything. And the next is 2 copies of Twin Twisters. This is valuable on your opponent's turn as well, but so you can set it as a trap basically. But at the end of the day, you know, they are more going second kind of cards, so it's unfortunate, but that is sort of what the way that this deck has to be built. You do have to kind of expect that you're going to go second first, and then maybe you'll be forced to go first during round 2. Alright, and that does it for the spells. Let's get on to the trap. That's right, I said trap. The only trap that we run is 1 copy of Ancient Warrior Saga Defense of Changban. Now we run multiple copies of this, and we run other traps in the side deck, but in the main deck, this is it. And the reason is that you can activate this on your turn if you're going first using Ancient Warrior Saga Borrowing of the Arrows, or you can set this on your turn, or you can send this from your hand to the graveyard if you end up drawing into it, and if it's in the grave, it's also got an effect. So, on field, you can send this card from the field to the grave during your opponent's main phase, at the end of the main phase, to basically make it so they can't attack any of your Ancient Warriors. Because if this is sent from the field to the grave, for that turn, your opponent cannot attack an Ancient Warrior. So that just protects all your Ancient Warriors from battle. If this card's in the graveyard, and your opponent's monster declares an attack, regardless of if you control an Ancient Warrior or not, you can banish this card from the grave and special summon an Ancient Warrior monster from the deck. And so, in some cases, this can be used to form a Duplock with Masterful Summon and Virtuously Shuang, who can't be attacked if you control another Ancient Warrior while either of them are on the field. You have both of them on the field, and your opponent can't attack either of them. So, this can be used in that way, which is how I was using it to go first in the previous build. But typically, this is a really good card for you if you have to go first. So, again, hedging your bets. This is it. Let's go on to the extra deck. The extra deck, unimportant. We run some rank 4s, because a lot of the Ancient Warriors are rank 4. We run a rank 7, because the Ancient Warriors are rank 7. We run a couple rank 4s, because, you know, you might get that big. Not likely, though. So, the first rank 4 we run Brotherhood of the Fire Fist, Tiger King. Basically, it's a one-sided skill drain. We also run an Exciton Knight. In the case where your opponent's built a board and you haven't, they might have more cards than you. You can blow up the entire field. We run a Light Dragon Attic Nister. It's basically single removal, but it's non-targeting, so that can be really good. We run Baguska in case you're in real trouble and you just need to sort of stall out for a couple turns. We run a Steel Swarm Roach if you're going first and you think you're going to need to negate a normal summon, or your opponent is super reliant on a summon, a specific summon, they've got sort of a choke point. You can detach material from this to negate that summon. We run Abyss Dweller for those grave-centric decks that run around. Number 37, Hope Woven Dragon Spider Shark. Lets us decrease all our opponent's monsters by 1,000. The one thing is you do require 2 level 4 water monsters, so typically you're going to make this with Sun Ma-O and Shu Gong, but if you have a way to trigger their effects on your opponent's turn, such as Suje Kong, then what you're going to end up doing is probably not wanting this. You're going to prefer to have your Ancient Warriors on the field. We also run a Utopia package. I don't run the Utopia double. I think that it's kind of boring to win that way, so I don't run it. But if you want to, go ahead. I run this package. It's basically just Utopia the Lightning with multiple materials, allowing us to basically pop off and make a big bait stick to get over anything. I run one Big Eye. That's our rank 7. Just taking stuff is fun. Then I run Borrelsword and Borreload. Borreload if I have to go first, Borrelsword if I'm pushing for game, but typically I won't need Borrelsword to push for game. The Ancient Warriors do that quite well on their own. Now this is for the extra deck. I'm really looking forward to Rise of the Duelist because the Ancient Warriors are getting their own extra deck monster in there. I'm kind of hoping that he's an ultra rare because it would feel weird if he wasn't. But he lets you play on your opponent's turn consistently because he does have a quick effect that you can basically search every single turn. Because all you need is 2 Ancient Warriors, 1 Wind Attribute Ancient Warrior. Now onto the extra deck cards that I talked about that allow us to go first a little more. If we are worried about spell trap heavy decks, we can side in our Eccentric Lu Jing. He will let us recur Ancient Warriors from the grave by sending a card from our hand or field to the grave. And on our opponent's turn, if we activate, or at any point, if we activate a Ancient Warrior effect while he's on the field, then he will allow us to destroy a spell or trap on our opponent's side of the field. We run 3 copies of Ash Blossom. I used to run this in the main deck, but I needed the space for a lot of the other cards that are in the deck now, because the Ancient Warrior lineup's gotten a bit bigger in the deck. So I needed the extra space for that. But Ash Blossom, stop searching. So when going first, this can be really valuable to stop our opponent from breaking our board, because our boards do tend to be a little more fragile. We run 2 extra copies of Ancient Warriors Defensive Changban. Again, when going first, you kind of want to see this card because it is really valuable for going first. So we want to be sure we see it, so we run a couple extra copies. And then we run 2 copies of Crackdown because, again, taking stuff is really fun. So my final thoughts on the deck. The deck is still a really solid going second deck. It does have a lot of break my board capabilities with secondary effects like Sun Ma-Os and Shu Jie Kongs, and it's also got the ability to combo off using things like Virtuously with Schwann's summon effect if your opponent's already popped off without you. But it can now go first because of our Shu Jie Kong, who can special summon himself from the hand when he's added by an Ancient Warrior effect, but also has a quick effect, allowing us to trigger our Sun Ma and our Shu Gong on our opponent's turn. We can also protect them using Fearsome Zhang Yang from the hand as a bit of a hand trap. It's almost like an Honest in a way because of the fact that it does increase them during battle. And we also have a big boss monster in the Ambitious Chao Dai. Even though this isn't our goal to get into this boss monster, it's our goal to get into multiple different kinds of locks that the deck can put with utilizing 2 or 3 monsters at a time. He can be a really valuable card for the deck. So along with these monsters and with the spell and trap lineup that the Ancient Warriors bring to the table, this deck can competently break a board while also protecting its own board having to go first. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you guys for watching the video. Make sure you leave us a like, comment, and subscribe. Check out the Facebook page, links in the description below, and if you keep an eye on that Facebook page, you'll find out more news about the test stands video for this deck profile coming out later this week. Also, I'll see you guys at the next profile.